The problem with us is that we have been lying to ourselves as a collective for so long that it is actually the person who forces us to confront the truth of our lies that we begin to attack.
Hello, my great and wonderful people. We welcome you once again to our today's episode of this program. And today we get this video for our table. When ABC one quickly review to you. When ABC will receive from the recent interview from Barrister Dele Farotimi and also a human rights activist. Just as you rightly see, short one from the introduction of this very broadcast. This one now the reveal of the book when it be said this man launch for on the 12th of June 2024. Now his own book when he writes by his own self, when he called Nigeria and their own criminal justice system. And for this very interview, this man sit down by his own self to answer deep questions when it be say a lot of Nigerians get for mind. I beg you, sit down and hold on to the end of this very broadcast. As we already talk, say anytime we be say you see Barrister Dele Farotimi for scream, you know say this man, in own word, not the fall to the ground. I will leave you shortly to listen to this very interview. I'll come back for more.
All I have done is that I have given a truthful account of what I have seen within the judicial system. And it has taken the loss of the judiciary for Nigeria to become the useless place it has more or less become now. So if we must deal with our problems, we have to begin by fixing our judicial system. And that is why this becomes important.
Important. I mean, I'll be taking a bit of some lines from the book as we go on in the conversation, because you made very strong. What's the legal terminology for it? Well, I didn't want to call it allegations, but very strong. Like you know how you're so confident that this is it, right? And the first line that caught me, I think there's a lot of pen in the book. Say, I always knew that Nigeria is built on a foundation of lies, right? That the country of my birth is iniquitous, right? Yeah. Unjust and intricately evil. I had known this from my mother's womb, and I had never harbored any illusions about the existential nature of the evil empire in which we live. I mean, if you say you've known it from your mother's womb, that is like literally, right? Are you supposed to be a messiah? Are you supposed to be a prophet that kind of like foresaw the future? Why would you say this? And when we talk about the arguments of our foundation and how Nigeria was formed in itself, we've heard those arguments in various quarters that, that is the very basis of where we have a problem. And in building, you and I know that if you build a structure and there's already some level of fault within the foundation, yeah, it is very likely, no matter how grand your ideas are, no matter how beautiful your ideas are. So if you are coming from the position of the foundation, how did we get it wrong? At what point did we get it wrong in the foundation? And if we truly want to even say we want to solve the problem, how do we start to solve this foundational problem when we are far gone into the building?
You see, there is this analogy that I'm fond of using, and it's the one that says that if you are meant to be going to Sokoto and you headed in the direction of Badagry, at some point you are going to have to admit to yourself that you are headed in the wrong direction, and then having factored in the fact that you are not headed in the right direction, now recalibrate your movement to head in the direction of Sokoto instead of continuing to go towards Badagry, because no matter how long you kept traveling on that route, you're not going to get to Sokoto. The problem with us is that we have been lying to ourselves as a collective for so long that it is actually the person who forces us to confront the truth of our lies that we begin to attack. We cannot become the country where precepts, concepts, and words come to attain new meanings. If we say we are citizens, what we are saying without any ambiguity, for anybody to be a citizen, for a society to have citizens, you must be found on the rule of law. It would mean that both the governed and the governors are equally bound by the law. It must mean that the judiciary is one that deals with people blindfolded.
So
You don't see no, you don't see religion, you don't see ethnicity, you don't see political affiliations. That is the job of an independent judiciary where in a society ruled by law. But in a situation where instead of us being ruled by law, even at the most elementary level, we're governed by the will of men. No matter how perfect those men might be, they remain men. And it simply means that for as long as we are ruled by the will of men, we're subject to their whims and caprices. It then means that you cannot have a fair measure for dealing with people within that space. The reality of the Nigerian situation is that neither you nor myself can be said to be citizens. We are just subjects. When you proceed from that and you then factor in the fact that those who are constitutionally, and I'll come back to that word constitution, charged with the duty of upholding the law, are already cognizant of the fact that they don't have laws to uphold and that all they have to do is to uphold the will of men. So you have a policeman come to you, he's not dealing with you based on the law. He's dealing with you based on his evaluation of your person. So if he looks at you and he believes that you have the capacity to call somebody higher up, or if he takes you to the station, you have the capacity to converse with his superiors, he deals with you in a particular manner. If he sizes you up and he concludes that you are not possessed of the capacity to call up someone and you are a nobody, quote and unquote, he deals with you in another manner. If you took that to another level, you understand that if you're driving on the streets of Lagos, for instance, if you, as a private person, drives on BRT lane, the police will catch you. But if the bus driver, the Danfo driver, enters the same lane, they'll probably wave at each other because the bus driver had purchased the license for impunity when he paid his dues in the morning. So you are not dealing with a society that is governed by law. The first time I was slapped by a policeman, I was 16 years old. I wasn't doing anything wrong. There was a riot going on, student protest at Oscars in Ife. There was a problem at Unifair in those days, and there was a riot. And I was going from my hall of residence, heading to the school campus to go and read. I didn't realize that there had been a resurgence of the protest and police were chasing students around, cops and robbers. So me, I was coming out of my hall of residence, heading to the school to go and read, and I ran into a policeman. And, you know, it was like in a cul-de-sac, we ran into each other, and he slapped me. He slapped me so hard, my books fell down. And the guy was just looking at me with his hand on his waistline. And in that moment, you know, he just, in fact, the way I wrote about it, when I eventually wrote about it years ago, I said I received sense. He slapped me so hard I received sense. Every illusion I ever had about the Nigerian police being a law enforcement agency disappeared. So if at 16 years old, I've already lost any illusion I had about the legality or otherwise of the law enforcement agency in my country and its relationship with the law, I might as well hyperbolically say that I knew from my mother's womb that I'm living in a country that is not governed by law. That is just the reality. Everything I've seen in my 56 years of being a Nigerian has told me that my relationship with agencies of the state is not predicated on my citizenship because I am not considered one. So if I am not a citizen, which is further strengthened by what I told you before, Constitution. I'm sure you'll be a member of some trade group, maybe like the Broadcasters or Journalists Association or something or the other. There must be an association you belong to, maybe even your town's union, maybe your old girls association. Any association you might care to belong to, you would have a constitution. That is the set of rules that governs your organization. This is a country where the people who are called citizens have never been privileged since 1963. They've not been privileged to write a constitution for themselves. It's been military adventurers who have written our constitutions. How do you then speak to citizenship when the most basic right of a citizen, the right to craft the rule by which he will live, has been taken away from that citizen?
So this leads me to a portion of the book that I had read that, whilst you were starting off your legal career and, after certain kinds of, resignation, you got the opportunity to be like called to serve within the government, and you turned down that opportunity. So, well, let me land. So, I mean, because I've heard the argument Professor Yemi Osinbajo had said at some point that the only way to change the system or to clean up the system is to be within the system, be part of the system. That's the only way. Because, hearing you talk about constitutional issues that we have already and all of those things, the only way we can be considered, right, to be part of the people that should come in to say we want to rewrite the constitution or write a constitution that can benefit us as a people, is if also we have people in there that are campaigning to say that Nigerians have to be part of this system, to be part of the process. So if you were given the opportunity, right, I think it was the Lagos magistrate, I believe then, yes.
I was being offered one.
You were offered and you turned down that offer, and I'm wondering, so why are you even complaining? Because you had the opportunity to be able to be in the system to solve the problem.
Let me put it this way. If, one, in the law profession, there are multiple branches and multiple areas from where one might impact the society. When I was reading law, long before I even got any admission to study law, I had never at any point had the ambition and even the aptitude, for that matter, to become a judicial officer. I don't have the temperament. I have never desired it. I was offered a magistracy because lawyers are the least paid professionals in this country. And the person who was making the offer reckoned that I should, as a poorly paid lawyer, I think my salary at the time was 5,000 naira a month. So the thinking was that I should be grateful for a job that was at the time paying 60,000 naira a month, a Corolla car, and a flat. Yes, it came with a lot of perks, but it just wasn't me. If I had gone on to become a magistrate, I would have probably become the most useless magistrate in the world because it simply wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. If you appointed me to the bench today, I'll still say no because that is simply not my calling. The strength of any man is his capacity to discern his purpose. It is not my purpose to sit down as a magistrate and be adjudicating cases. What can you really do? That is one. The second reason, because that was over 20 years ago. Even today, if you recall, before the shenanigans at the election time, I remember saying variously, even on your program, that I wasn't going to accept a role in Peter Obi's government. Sure. The only reason I'm raising it now is so that I can tie it to the question you have asked. Everybody that I've worked within this system, because none of them have gone in with the intention of changing anything. They just want to be the ones operating the system. Mm-hmm. I am not interested in operating this evil system. My sole interest with the Nigerian governance system is its destruction. I don't believe that this system is capable of delivering any value to the Nigerian people. So for me to go and accept an office where I have to swear to uphold the Constitution, which I believe is the primary evil, will be completely hypocritical. So on that basis, the only office I can possibly accept, the only public office I can ever accept is the one that has a clear mandate to destroy Decree 24 of 1999 and then give the Nigerian people their own constitution. and then restructure the entire governance system. That would interest me. But a system that is asking me to come and, what they're actually doing when they ask you to come and serve in any capacity is come and chop. They have been brazen enough to say it in the past. Your invitation is to come and chop, and you don't talk when you are eating. So I'm not interested in.
You have to be quiet, but let's touch on something you just said that is very powerful, because again, I believe is one of the problems we have in Nigeria. The pay grade for people within the judiciary, right? Same as media. You know, some checks and balances that should even help checkmate any bad governance, right? Should be people within the media space and people, of course, within the judiciary. And you see this happen perpetually over and over again. Is it that this poor pay, has become a tool in the hands of leaders to continue to control what you want me to do, you know, how I want you to say it, how I want you to rule on it? Is that a deliberate attempt to actually kill the system so that nobody does what they are not, they have not been asked to do?
All right. I'm fond of explaining that our problems are built on three legs. It's like a tripod. You've got weaponized ignorance. You've got weaponized poverty. And then you've got weaponized religion. Weaponized poverty is what you're referring to. And that is where you deliberately underpay so that the person is kept servile and underfoot. What you have today is a situation where there is practically no Nigerian who is earning a salary outside of the top tier that is earning a living wage. It is particularly more so when you come to government workers who are deliberately underpaid and allowed to use the powers of impunity that they maintain. Because in the absence of the rule of law, you have to manage the rule of impunity somehow. So the people who are charged with the duty of preserving the rule of impunity are also able to administer the impunity in pursuance of their own interest. So when you underpay a judge or a magistrate or a policeman or a pressman, if you look at the press, for instance, the bulk of the press in Nigeria is now privately owned. But the private persons who own the media industry are largely persons connected to government. I've heard of cases where newspaper editors are told, I've given you the page, how you make money is your business. So the salary is not expected, and that has begun to, you'll find that reflected in our editorial styles. There are some stories you'll be reading in the newspaper and you know that somebody paid for this to be put there. And somebody else will then pay the next time around. You see something else for a rebuttal. You find interviewers incapable of asking questions that they are afraid of your answers because they don't want the owners of the station or friends of the owner to come after them. This, you know, when you talk about weaponized poverty, it seems such an abstract concept. But when you break it down to specifics and you then ask yourself, how do you explain that a policeman who is given a gun, who stands on the road, who actually tells you to your face, I'll kill you and nothing will happen, you know that they are paying him 50,000 naira. No matter the rank he's hanging on that road, at that checkpoint, he's earning less than 50,000 naira. A bag of rice is over, he can't buy a bag of rice. Just a miserable bag of rice he can't buy. He might have 5 children, his wife, himself. How is he supposed to feed on that money? So exactly. So you've already created the condition to make sure that he is incapable of upholding the law, but it is beneficial to a system that is designed to run on impunity to do that. Because that then renders that policeman more amenable to do the bidding of his political masters, and you can replicate that all the way down the line. The judiciary, the press, everybody. Poverty has become a real thing.
This is interesting. So I was just going to ask again, because some people have. I read the major case in this book that spoke about a land grabbing situation that involved. First of all, do you have anything personal? Any personal problem with Afe Babalola? Because you called a lot of names.
No. It's not personal. It's not personal. And this is very important for me. It is not personal. And it is the fact that it is not personal that has made it important. That I thank God that Chief Afe Babalola is alive and well. I thank God that there is nobody I have mentioned that is dead. Each and every one of the persons who happen to be just types. Because if it wasn't Afe, if it wasn't any one of the other persons, it would have been someone else, because it is the system that has allowed this to happen. But if we say that, so that we might not be said to be against persons, we continue to ignore the ignoble acts of persons, the system will be further strengthened, and such evil would become the norm. It's already become the norm. And it found normalcy in our collective silence. We, in our little spaces, we elected to be quiet. We don't want to be labeled rebels. We don't want to be seen as spoiling anybody's name. We don't want it to seem like it's personal. But this is not personal.
Because I want to read something here. You said Afe has been corrupting the Supreme Court from ages past, and he has led it to commit the most, these your words are quite egregious act of evil and wanton injustice. It says Afe knows where her ladyship does not know, or what her ladyship does not know, or pretends not to know, that justice does not live in Nigerian court, and you can get the court to do whatever you want, as long as you know who to speak with and who to pay.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Put it this way.
When I looked at this, I now said,
I'm writing about a man who is, I believe, in his 90s now.
Yes.
If I stole 10 million naira from you, for instance, now, it simply means that if you went back into my history, you'll find that I had stolen 10 naira from somebody before. I cannot suddenly change and become what I wasn't in my dotage. The level of corruption that I witnessed in this case, the brazenness of it, is not suggestive of somebody who is coming to the rodeo for the first time. This is a well-practiced person. This is the norm for these persons. Look, no matter how corrupt a judicial system might be, there are certain precepts and norms. It's like I want to count 1 to 3, and then I'm looking to skip 2. So I just say 1, 3. Where is the 2? So there should be some order, some processes by which you arrive at a particular decision. That is why the court have rules. You have rules of court, and that is why we have laws. But when you see the highest judicial body in the country flouting its own rules and acting in a manner that is suggestive of impunity, then you know that something is very abnormal in that situation. I have not written these words lightly. And I am eternally grateful to God that these persons are alive. They are alive. If I have lied against them, they have recourse. Every last allegation I have made, the proofs are in the court's file. I don't even need to be the one bringing out anything. The evidence in the court's own file proves my allegations. Clearly, beyond argument. There are no ambiguities here. It's a situation where when people become so powerful that they don't even care or believe that they are subject to any law, the law does not apply to them. The brazen impunity by which they did what they did made it impossible for maybe somebody else might have been able to find peace and walk away and be telling the story as part of their moonlight tales, or maybe when they sit amongst their friends and they are sharing beer and cognac, maybe they might have talked about it as further proof of the putrefaction of our judiciary. But I'm not interested in beer parlor talk. It is the system itself. I'm not even interested in Affair and all the other people involved. It is the system that allowed them to be who they are and to do the things that they have done that I'm speaking to. If those ones are there, they're just collateral damage. They are not even, there is no damage. They are the ones who have caused damages. Yeah. So they are collateral beneficiaries of the story told because they are the operatives of the system. I'm not interested in their person, but the evil system that they represent is my mortal enemy.
So I like where you took the conversation to, because it then leads me to some of the arguments that we've also heard. That are you not speaking based on a small okay, so these conclusions that you're drawing about a big system as the Supreme Court of Nigeria, right? Is this not coming from just your interference with this small group of people? When you guys have a larger body, I mean, there are thousands of people within the judicial system in Nigeria, you know, but it then made me see this part where you said that you have seen injustice everywhere within the Nigerian court, that you're a lawyer with over 2 decades behind your practice, and you have interacted with the judicial system as a practitioner, as a victim, and as the aggrieved. It says there's no justice to be had in our criminal justice system. I have become convinced that the system itself, it's criminal and completely incapable of delivering justice to anyone, because the justice system is part and parcel of a governance system that cannot afford to allow the equality of the citizens before the law. This is powerful.
It's the truth.
So, but are you not drawing up this conclusion just based on your own? I have to be objective here.
Let me tell you.
So it's like, okay, so it's like I have dealt with, I've dated you, I've dated somebody else, and all of a sudden, I now say men are.
You know, I get what you're saying.
All men are useless.
I get what you're saying, but let me show you something.
Yes.
Because of the evil done in the case I referred to, a lot of people lost their homes. Miscreants entered Nikon town to claim that they are claiming possession of part of Nikon town. They entered multiple estates in the Lekki axis in 2013 based on the strength of this fraudulent judgment. Those are persons who are affected. I told the story of a man on whose behalf I sued at the time. He had only 2 plots of land. I got judgment for him from that same system. So when I say that there is no justice to be found within the Nigerian legal system, I understand that it sounds like a sweeping indictment of the system. But if 65–70% proves to be true, that generalization holds completely true. That is the reality with which we are grappling. I have never come into the public space to talk about personal battles I'm fighting within the judicial system. There was a case at the time I was writing this, even at the time I finished writing this, there was a case where I had been sent to prison almost for life until I paid 208 million that was owed by somebody for whom I stood surety. I went through the gamut of the judicial system. I was convicted in the High Court. I went to the Court of Appeal. I never brought it to the public space. I didn't make it a subject of social media, entertainment, or anything like that, because it's not personal. It's about testing a system. The matter went all the way to the Court of Appeal, and it was only in June last year, in fact, it was June 23rd, became exactly a year when the Court of Appeal discharged and acquitted me. So when I say the system is incapable of giving justice, I'm talking about systems. You would always find outliers within even an evil system. Even the judge that convicted me in that case is still somebody I consider probably one of the few judges in Lagos State you can't even induce with money. But it didn't make her any less unjust because she did what the system demanded of her. EFCC charged me. And as far as she was concerned in her thinking, because the EFCC had said so, it must be so. In spite of the evidence that were before her, she still convicted me, but I didn't hold it against her. I had enough faith to believe that any judicial system that is fair, looking at these facts, should free me. So I went on to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal indeed asked me to go. But does that mean that other people have not been unfairly dealt with by the system? No. I could afford to pursue my case. I could afford to fight through the system. But this was a case that should never have been taken to trial in the first place. But it went to trial because that's the way the system is rigged. This was a case the judge should never have sent me to jail, but she did, based on her own understanding of the law. But I went on to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said, go. But the point, that the fact that I was exonerated by the Court of Appeal does not eradicate the fact that it shouldn't even have happened in the first place. But because the system is not designed to give justice, it is meant to punish. Once you are not one of those to whom impunity is applicable, and you run foul of their legal system, the intention at every point is to punish. It's not to find the justice or the equity of the situation. So if anybody is finding any level of justice within our system or equity within our system, is either you're particularly blessed to find one of the rare judges on the bench, or you are particularly favored because somebody decided to do the right thing and read through your pleadings.
All right, my great and wonderful people, I will leave you now to share your opinion with us at the comment section, because you not get any single thing when you be with the art to this very one. Do the rest for us, the questions and the answer for the comment section, even as we draw the line here. We will see you again when we see you. Remember, we love you all. Bye-bye.